Welcome to the Midwest side, those groups that the narratively driven podcast. You'll have a fun ride. I'll be in fall. We get so fast, dice rolling for low in the swamp, never stolen, no to the Dogs of Warcry.
Dogs of Warcry is a podcast from the Mortal Realms, focusing on Warcry, a fast-paced, cinematic skirmish game by Games Workshop. Join us for discussions on gameplay, rules, lore, painting, terrain building, campaigns, and events.
Welcome to Dogs of Warcry. In Episode 7, we're going to discuss Tome of Champions 2020, the new and updated rules, Triumph and Treachery Pit Fighting, narrative play, Trial of Champions updates, the new Fated quests and challenge battles, including Wild Fighters, the new Lesser Artifact tables based on Grand Alliance, and we'll touch on the match play content. We've got a lot of good things in store for you this time. I'm Josh, and joining me this week is Paven. How are you, man?
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year, indeed! Welcome to the 8 Points.
It's great. It's great to be here. We are on the third calendar year of Dogs of Warcry, although, we haven't been doing it for 3 years.
Right, good point.
That's a victory.
That is a victory. I agree. It's a great accomplishment, I think. See, 3 seasons, people still listening. That's always a good thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, yeah, no, it's been a great break, kind of reading this book, going through stuff, enjoying the holidays, ready to talk about some new and interesting rule sets, though, for sure.
Yeah, this is a great book. They've done a lot of good books. I think this is like one of the best. This is definitely one of the best annuals that I've read coming out of Games Workshop. So I'm including the General's Handbook. I'm including the 40K one, which escapes me. Chapter approved.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, chapter approved. Whatever the other ones are. I guess I don't read all of them, but this is the best one I've read. I think it's got a bunch of really great rules updates. Thought it's a bunch of great rules, expansions on the lore, like new scenarios. It's all so good. And I guess we'll talk about it later.
Exactly. That'd be great. Well, why don't we kick it off with the Forge of Mithraxis? What did you do, Paven, in the last time since we talked?
I think I've gotten a good amount of work done since we've last talked. It's been 3 weeks since we last recorded. But hopefully it'll only be 2 weeks. It will still be on cadence. I don't know, Josh. I don't want to make any promises that you're going to have to keep.
It'll be out this Wednesday.
This Wednesday? Oh, then we're going to be on pace. Great news.
Yes.
So leave this all in. So what have I done? I think last time I talked about it, I got really excited about terrain, as happens once every half a year, once every 6 months. And I was able to finish all my dungeon terrain. So I'm ready to play Catacombs games on a full dungeon painted board. I went with kind of a purple, gray, bronze, bone scheme. So very muted colors. Yeah, my philosophy for terrain is always that it should kind of blend into the background. It should look good. It should feel real, but it shouldn't try to steal the show from the miniatures. So I kind of tied it into my Scions of the Flame. It doesn't have any of that flame to make it pop, but it does have the purple and the bronze to tie it together with that warband. So that's all up on my shelf. I feel good that is done. I also assembled all the above ground terrain,
Nice.
And that's primed. I primed it today, actually, and now I've just started. I think I finished one piece of scatter terrain just to knock out quick in between other things, and so that is on the way as well. And that is great. That was really fun to assemble. I'd never really worked with much of the original Warcry box set terrain, and that is, it's just really great modular kit. Yeah. So it was great. Very happy with it. I also finished 2 more initiates for my Scions. So my second group, I've been working on those 2 initiates, very slightly converted. So those guys are done. So my warband is up to 10. I also, which a little out of character, I bought something before I had finished painting everything, but it was just a box of bits, unmarked box of bits. One of the local stores will just sell you just a random weight of bits. And so I wanted to see what that was like. So I bought $10 of bits. And there's some cool stuff in there. I don't know if I'll just continue to buy random bits, because there's certainly a lot of Space Marine stuff in there. And I don't collect Space Marines. But I was able to assemble a full dwarf Quarreler, so a very out of print Warhammer Fantasy Battles miniature, and I think this may be my very tentative start to my Living City Root King Warcry Warband.
That'd be cool.
So he's assembled and painted, or not painted, but primed, and has some paint on it as I figure out a scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, I won't get too far in what my future plans are for the Scions, but I really got to finish that Orgroid. He really needs to be the next thing. And something cool that spawned out of the Mortal Realms Discord that I had no part in was a painting initiative / Twitter campaign for everybody that's interested in that wants to see more, like, less battle-based miniatures, like more kind of like regular dudes or like people in the wonderful setting that is the Mortal Realms. Like, how does that all work outside of a fantasy battle game? This is called and Josh, please jump in here if I mess this up, but it's like it's hashtag Mortal Citizens.
Yep, that's correct.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And for this January, the challenge is you paint up a diplomat. So that can take that to whatever you want to mean. Just paint up a diplomat model. So it's not a general, it's not a wizard, it's not a warrior, it's not a monster. It's a diplomat. You have different moves, different aesthetic. So I want to do that. I don't know how, but I'm interested in trying to do some models, small model. I think I'm going to tie it into the Scion somehow. Like, it's a religious kind of friendly guy that goes into your community and he's like, hey, if you heard the good news about Arcane,
right.
and he's like kind of diplomatic in that way. In a way, he's like, he's like the friendly face. The first guy that shows up is nice. So maybe
that'd be cool. Yeah, no, I've heard about that initiative, and I kind of looked at some of the categories for each month, and they'll be really interesting. So I kind of started thinking about, what could I do as a diplomat, and then I haven't gotten back to it. So I should do that. That would be really fun.
Yeah, it's hard. I've been struggling a bit. Like, what visual cues do you have for a diplomat? Like a book? No, that's like like what is it? A piece of parchment? Like, I don't know. Like, on the miniature, you have to exaggerate things. You have to use like symbols to show off what something is.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah. It certainly depends
all
on the race.
I got like piles of swords, but what is, I got to find somebody with a scroll and a happy face.
Right? Yeah. Like Sylvaneth, what would a Sylvaneth diplomat look like? It looks like a branch wraith, right? Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, you got a lot done. That's great. And I did see some of the pictures of your terrain, and that looks very nice, especially with the Scions. They go great together.
Yeah, so, we should play on it one day.
Yes. So much terrain to play on. We haven't had a chance. Speaking of terrain, I've been working on some Warcry terrain as well. Not the catacombs. I wasn't working on painting, but during the various family get-togethers and things like that, playing games with the kids, or we're all watching a movie or whatever. I couldn't really paint, but I did have a second set of terrain from the first starter box that I got off somebody for an exchange for some miniatures and at a discounted price. And I also bought the Azerite Shattered Plaza with the intent of combining those two kits to make higher elevation and a greater city ruin terrain, kind of like Mordheimish. So there's a lot of spruce. So whenever I've gotten the chance, I'm just a movie on. I'm not super keen in it, but I'll sit down, I'll clip these out, I'll file it out, put it together. So I spent a lot of time working on those and got some of the smaller pieces of the Azerite Shattered Plaza put together, like the fountain and chests and things. Been busy filing, a lot of filing for all the various walls and things like that. But then I'll start, when I get some time, start looking at combinations and how to put that together and elevate things a little bit. Got a good color scheme in mind that I saw from some people sharing their progress on the Warhammer Warcry Facebook page and other places. So I was like, all right, got a great color scheme. I'll probably paint up my mausoleum terrain in a similar color scheme to even, expand that city terrain options even more. And the reason I kind of got excited in this again is I was like, I really have this, I should work on it. And the Soroth Core campaign set in a ruined city, this would be a perfect opportunity to get this together and start using some of this stuff. So kind of inspired me to start working on getting that ready for the kit bashing aspect of it. So be a lot of fun.
Have you started to put the levels together?
I haven't, no. So I'm still
Okay.
still at that critical filing all the nubbins off.
Yeah.
I try to use my Dremel tool, but it goes a little too fast, and then you get, divots. So I was like, okay, I got to go back to the hand files. So it's taking me a little longer.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, there's some parts with the Warcry terrain where it's like you got to like file it down, or all the Azerite ruin terrain. There's like you got to file it, but you don't want to file it too much because that like will texture what is supposed to be like a smooth art surface, and then and then sometimes you got to. I definitely did some gap filling as well on some of the joins, especially on the corner join because there's like a really sharp line between them. I noticed.
Gotcha.
But I'm really happy to hear that you're taking another swing, or another person taking a swing at like the multiple level Age of Sigmar terrain, because I've always been very jealous of like the 40k Necromunda boards where you have like 6 floors and you're like falling off and you're banging your head all the way down and it's like very intricate and dense.
Yeah.
And like there's a promise of that with the Azerite Ruins terrain that I don't know has ever been fulfilled. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see how you do and like how it goes. I don't know. Like I've seen some like attempts on the internet to like make it like 3 stories, 4 stories.
Yep.
And it doesn't always look quite right, but I don't know if the attempt I'm specifically thinking of might have been pre the Warcry terrain, which is like more intricate and kind of nicer than the original batch of Azerite Ruin terrain.
Right. Yeah, I have seen people go with maybe 3 stories with like a fixed board, and it looked really nice. So yeah, I think part of the challenge would be figuring out what combinations, and do I want to make it so I could take off a second level so you can put a different type on there or not. I may just kind of glue it just so I have. I think that'll be easier and sturdier if you start moving models around on higher floors.
Yeah, how like modular to make it.
Right. Yeah. I'll probably won't make it too modular, but maybe I'll leave some components free to move around, some smaller scatter terrain, of course.
Yeah, I'm looking at this Azerite Shattered Plaza, and it seems like the first floor of these 2 buildings they have is the exact same sprue as what comes in the Catacombs box.
Yep.
But they give you the second floor separately. Mm-hmm. And it looks like that second floor is just glued right on top.
And it also has some smaller, like, standalone wall pieces, which I thought was a great way to add, like, a partial second level or whatnot. And part of the reason I got the Azerite Shattered Plaza is because it was the same wall set, so it'll all integrate really well. Yeah,
it's definitely kind of the same. Well, part of it is literally the same sprue, and then it's like additional pieces on top of that. Yeah, it looks really cool. And that fountain is dope. Are you going to pour resin in it?
Yeah, I think so. I've got a bunch. Color it some funky colors probably. We'll figure out what the colors. With Soroth Core, they mentioned some of the rivers having some funky colors. So I think blood. I think it's blood.
Blood fountain. It would be weird if it wasn't.
Exactly. Right.
Okay. Anything else to report in the Forge? I won't ask you about your warband progress until
later.
Circle of Pain challenge.
Nope. We can move on to Path to Glory. And I'll start here because I have not had any games yet. My stepson did promise as part of a Christmas gift to have a game day with me, and but he was visiting family and then came back, and he's been working quite a bit, so we haven't had a chance to get some games in, but I did plan to get a Warcry game in, so hopefully by the next time we record we'll have a game.
Did he give you like coupons?
No. He just said it verbally.
Oh, he just said it verbally.
All right, but I know you got something in.
I did get a 1 game in since our last episode, and it was a solo game. I played a challenge battle based in Tome of Champions 2020, and it's the scenario, The Fall of Snagglewort. Now, normally these challenge battles are set up in a way you would two players against 1 AI opponent, but that's easily, I think, adjusted to just be 1 player, and that's what I took advantage of. And So I want to talk about the scenario and why it was exciting to me and why I decided to play it. So the Fall of Snagglewort takes place in Soloth Core, which is the setting of all of the Tome of Champions scenarios and background where they're really adding here. And what has happened is a loon boss has gotten into the city and has taken over a bunch of districts. We have a Git infestation on our hands, and it's so annoying and frustrating for the other like Chaos Warbands and other warlords that you actually team up to try to get rid of all these grots. And the plan is that you've acquired some Axian blast powder from Priests of the Ever-Raging Flame. So that's right into my Scions. They probably have a bunch of it. And you're going to blow up the Loon Shrine. So I have a Loon Shrine. I have a lot of Gits. I can easily set up this board. And that's why I was really excited about seeing what it would look like and playing it out. So I did. And so the battle unfolded like this. So I set up the Loon Shrine. I pushed it a little bit back to balance it out for a one-person mode and to make it more aesthetically pleasing. I situated the Loon Shrine in the middle of my ruins terrain for Gitsville. So it's a Loon Shrine like in the middle of what looks like Azerite ruins to give it like an urban feel. My Scions are kicking in the front door. Snagglewort, who's a loon boss, and his like bodyguards are hanging out around the Loon Shrine. That's like the first group, and then on turn 2, kind of reinforcements come in from the sides. And so on turn 2, I had one squig herd coming in, and then one kind of group of bounders. So I actually think canonically, I think this is Skitrag, who I played last season. So Skitrag and a couple of their bounders are coming in to reinforce the Loon Shrine. So my guys have to like fight their way through. Get the guy with the blast powder on the shrine with no Gits within 2 inches, and if at the end of the turn that happens, I blow up the Loon Shrine and win. So I so you have the numbers initially. I rolled a quad. I ran up my immolator. He was only able to kill one grot, and then was like immediately killed by all the other grots because they all activate at once. They just filled them with arrows and stuff. And then everybody else like kind of charged the guy with the blast powder and put some damage on him. But then like they were just in the middle of all of my folks, and so they were able to pounce on him, kind of the faulty tactics of the wild fighter AI. So the wild fighters we might talk about this more later, but you like roll on the table based on the distance you are to other fighters. And they have different bonuses and behaviors depending on the die roll. So that was kind of the first turn. I was like clearing out some goblins, losing some guys, and slowly creeping our way forward to the shrine. The guy that's holding the keg can only move half speed, and so that was one of my Fireborn, and he was kind of creeping forward 2 inches a move, and so he moved 4 inches forward. And anything else happened that round besides my immolator dying immediately, which happens every game? Oh, we killed Snagglewort. Snagglewort just rushed into the middle of my guys, and we were able to kill him. So much for Snagglewort. But turn 2, the squig herd comes on, so it's 2 herders and 3 squigs, and squigs are incredibly dangerous in Warcry, so I was nervous about them, as well as 3 bounders, including 1 bounder boss. So those guys are very fast, and so they bounced in. All the bounders came in. They attacked the same initiate. My initiate survived the attacks of 2 of them, which was incredible, but the last one killed him. But it kind of held them up for 1 turn, which was really good. The squigs all got bogged down. They killed my other 2 guys on the left, a Fireborn and another initiate. So I'm like running low on guys here. But my Blazing Lord and Brazen Champion are able to clear a path in the middle. That's Raxos and Lord Krastos. We're able to kind of clear a path in the middle. And then my Fireborn was able to gun it toward the Loon Shrine where nobody was anymore and blow up their Loon Shrine. So I got to win. I got to win playing by myself. I also rolled, don't worry, Josh, I rolled on the injury tables for everybody that was out. Nobody had any injuries. I don't think anybody got any destiny, but I did get a cool artifact, which is blast powder bombs. And that's once per battle, I can use the artifact as an action. And I pick an invisible enemy fighter within 9, and I throw a bomb at them, and then I roll a dice for each fighter within 3 inches of that fighter, which I imagine includes that fighter. And on a 4 up, it's die 6 damage. So pretty good. Yeah. I think I put it on the Fireborn that was the demolitions expert for the scenario as a reward. And like him losing an action isn't as, is less meaningful than like, kind of the guys would have the powerhouse attacks.
Right.
So yeah, it was like really fun, and I took a lot of pictures of this game and I put them in a Google Doc and I shared it in our Discord, and I'm gonna try to share it again in the Discord if you want to check it out. I don't want to oversell it. It's just a bunch of pictures with like one-line captions on them, but maybe you're into that, and it was certainly fun to do. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun
that's
storytelling.
That's the game I play. That's what games are these days.
So just for my edification, normally these challenge battles have 2 warbands together, and I think this one had each warband is supposed to have 1,100, and then there's essentially 2,000 plus of the gets. So how did you adjust the points for your solo player game?
Well, I felt very ambitious and very confident, so I ended up only playing with 1,000 points because I only had 1,000 points painted of my Scion. Everything else was on the painting table, and I dropped the number of. It's supposed to be like 4 groups, 2 start on the table and 2 come on as reinforcements, each with at least 500 points.
Right.
I dropped it down to 3 groups, and so like 1,500, and it ended up being much more than that because I did at least 500, and so usually the next model took it way over, but like the ones with all the bounders was like 600 plus points.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, I kind of expect games where I know how the AI works and it's pretty simple to be easier. So I try to handicap myself as much as possible with as many points as I can give the opponent. But I would have gotten run over, I think, if it had gone too many more turns. But I didn't, and I won. I blew it up. Great.
Yeah,
good work, guys.
That's awesome. No, that's awesome. You were able to kind of tweak it so you could do a solo play with the AI, the behavior table. So I'm glad it worked out well.
Yeah, I'm
definitely looking forward to trying that myself.
Yeah, I recommend it.
Great. Well, our next topic are the Visions of Madness. And it's maddening because I don't think we have a whole lot of stuff to talk about, unfortunately. Do you have anything that you can think of, Paven?
I mean, we don't have any announcements or news. If we want to go really mad, we could probably do some speculation on the things that might be coming out for Age of Sigmar that might be Warcry warbands.
Yeah, no, I think we could do that. And I think the only thing concrete is in February, Heathen Knights of Slaanesh will be their battle tome and their models will be coming out. And obviously, we already have rules cards for those new models, but they're not out and available yet. So that's definitely something to look forward to if you want to play that particular warband. But yeah, share some of your scrying. What do you think's coming?
Well, there are rumors of a new death faction or a new kind of vampire death faction that may have a warband as part of it. There's a lot of rumor of open death rumor engine out there.
Yeah.
So could that be also a Warcry or just Warcry? Maybe. Certainly, one pattern they could complete is like adding Warcry warbands for all the Grand Alliances, at least one for each. So death could be one of them. The other possible thing is there's a lot of rumors for witch hunters or vampire hunters, and that would really fit a really nice Warcry niche, I think.
Yeah.
Type of miniature and aesthetic. Also call back to Mordheim, where witch hunters were a faction itself, and that would make a lot of sense for like the forces of Sigmar and Azir sending like very specialized teams into the 8 points to do like assassinations and other kind of killing of foul creatures.
Yeah.
So that would fit really well. But those are all kind of gross speculations.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I haven't really heard when the next Broken Realms book is supposed to be coming out, but it feels like it might be destruction focused too. We've gotten some like new orc model come out, and there's some hints around that. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see what that new destruction book or the new Broken Realms, because I thought it'd be Slaanesh focused with the newborn, etc. So that might introduce some interesting factions that you could use to theme your warbands in particular, but may or may not have any new models. But
we don't have a date. Yeah, the speculation, I think a lot of speculation I heard is they think the next book is Gordrak. But again, completely unconfirmed.
Exactly. They might wait till February for the, Broken Realms with any sort of Slaanesh models, because then at least Heathen Knights will be out at that time. It would make sense. But all right. Well, with that, we'll kind of tone down the madness, and we'll move into our Circle of Paint challenge, where we are painting up 2 war bands that you will all be able to vote upon in probably 6 weeks or so. I guess we'll have to figure that out soon. We got one more episode after this, and then we'll probably do a half episode to cover.
You're already building in the half episode?
I need it.
Okay.
But we'll start with Paven because he's had a lot more progress this last session than I have.
Sure. I'm gonna talk more because I think I already exhausted everybody with my hobby progress in the Forge of Mithraxis section. So I want to talk about where I'm going, and I don't know if I'm going to get all the way there for the end of the challenge. But here are my thoughts. What I want to do with my Scions and my expanding Chaos collection is kind of show a little bit of the progress of a warband down the path to glory. And so my first wave is the Scions I painted as part of the original 8 in the box, in the Catacombs box, relatively unconverted. And then I want to see them like kind of advance along the Chaos tracker. And so as they get, maybe they're kind of a religious group. They worship Chaos in this abstract concept of flame. They're like a minor. They're just a warband in the 8 points trying to carve out place, find meaning in this existence. So like as they stay in the 8 points and as they have success there, they're gonna become more, I think, militaristic. They're gonna learn more about Chaos, and then they're gonna transition. They're gonna start looking more like slaves to darkness and traditional Chaos warriors. They're gonna get more hardened. They're gonna know more about tactics and stuff, and that's kind of the arc I want to show. So the next group they're gonna be still the Signs of the Flame models, and I'm still gonna use those rules, but they're gonna start to have more heavily armored bits and more kind of traditional slaves to darkness iconography.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I'm going to use the kit for the Slaves to Darkness start collecting. I'm definitely going to pick up it's Kagra's Ravagers, that new Underworld warband, which is going to come out this month apparently.
Yeah, I thought.
And I'm going to use some of those bits, and so that's going to be kind of them going in that direction. It also allows me to have the same set of models, but visually distinguish them. I don't like exact same model, exact same pose.
Right.
And then there's going to be kind of the final stage where they are probably part of a larger warhouse, fully within Archaon's armies, part of the Chaos war machine as it churns on through the mortal realms. And so these are going to be warriors of Chaos that are using Slaves to Darkness Warcry rules, but have still are attached to the Scions icons. They're still going to have flames on them, and they're still going to have some of the doodads and pieces from the Scions kit, and it's all going to be in the same scheme. And they're going to be maybe part of that culture that have just lived longer, or they're my same warband over time. I haven't really decided that yet. And these are going to be the base miniature is going to be a Slaves to Darkness miniature, but I'm going to use bits from the Scions and other flame miniatures to show that they're still they still worship the flame, but they also know who Khorne is,
right?
And they know how to fight in ranks rather than just scrum it out in the streets of Karnkrad. So that's kind of where I'm going. Kits I want to pick up. I want to pick out the Flagellant kit, which is really old Fantasy Battles Empire kit, which is all a Doomsday prophets that would just join the Empire's armies and then die. But they have a lot of good flame bits that I'm hoping to use. Hopefully they're not too low detail, but they're usable. But there's at least a couple cool heads, and I want to use those. And then I'm going to pick up the new Slaves to Darkness Underworld warband, and then maybe the Slaves to Darkness start collecting. That's committing to a lot of models. So we'll see how it goes from there. But
yeah, I love the vision. That whole progression into it's also kind of right into the Warcry, Path to Glory, small size army. It's really cool. The idea of see how their progression and how you've thought it out already. That's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah, I hope I'm able to make cool miniatures as part of this idea.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Very characterful. Great. Well, my update section's much shorter. I'm way behind on painting. But I did order, as part of the inspiration I had when I was changing the color schemes. I've been hearing about this Chimera Colors pigments and how they work really well for the airbrush, as well as the higher intensity color. And you can kind of dilute them and mix paints a little easier. So I did request that for a Christmas gift, as well as a new wet palette. I have a small one that's kind of homemade with a Tupperware container and a sponge and some other stuff. And so I've seen a lot of people talk about these fancier wet palettes, and I requested one of those, but due to shipping delays, it's not quite here yet. So I'm really psyched to try those out, and I need to force myself to sit down and start doing some painting. Usually I do that at the dinner table, but with the holidays, we cleared it all off so that we could actually have our holiday meals there. So I need to go possess a corner of that table and start painting some more. So, or maybe take it into my office and start doing it there too. But yeah, that's my goal for the next couple of weeks, is to hit the painting hardcore.
I'm excited to see it.
Yes, I'll definitely share some pictures when I've got a newer test model to share. So
okay.
All right. Well, with that, we'll take a short break, and then we'll come back with our victory condition and the rest of the episode. Season 3 is here, and we're excited to bring you more Dogs of Warcry. We'll be discussing new warbands, the starter box Catacombs, our ongoing games and narrative play, and keeping you up to date on our Circle of Paint challenge. Thank you for the encouragement, and we hope you enjoy this episode of Dogs of Warcry. Please share your ideas and feedback with us as we travel the 8 points together. All right, welcome back. Our victory condition this episode is to discuss all of the great content in Tome of Champions 2020 and cover some of our favorite examples. I did want to state that we're not going to go in depth of Soroth Core campaign, because we're going to save that for another episode, because it's got so much great content that we thought it deserved its own episode. So we are going to cover all the new rules updates and the narrative campaigns and fated quests, etc., and kind of cover all of that. But stay in tune for our thoughts on Soroth Core next time. Starting with that, it's Tome of Champions Part 1. We've got things from Tome of Champions 2019. What kind of changes did we have, Paven?
So we had the Trial of Champion rules. Those are reproduced in here, so you don't need to buy Tome of Champions 2019 to get Trial of Champions. There's also some enhancements to Trial of Champions, which we'll get into later. And then there's the Glory System update, which is really good. It puts less emphasis on winning and more just playing, and so it's not so punishing to lose. You still get lots of glory. Right. Josh, I think you caught something I didn't, that it's actually a little bit different than 2019. Am I reading the show notes correctly?
Yep, exactly. So in the previous Glory update in Tome of Champions 2019, there was an underdog bonus where you got +1 glory if your opponent had more territories than you. And that's been tweaked a little bit in this set, where the opponent has to have 2 or more territories than you before you get that +1 bonus. So yeah, it's a small adjustment, but everything else was the same. Yeah, and again, it's definitely a good update from the core rulebook Glory system. I think that was all the changes I noted from the 2019, besides some of the other stuff coming up. Yep. New rules.
So, yeah, I guess if you're concerned you don't need to get 2019 anymore. I don't even know if you can get 2019 anymore. Still a valuable book, because there's a lot of cool scenarios and challenge battles in there and fated quests.
Yep.
But you don't need it.
Right. Yeah, just get this one first.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, especially with the new rules. Yes, new rules. All right, you want to touch on the first new rule set?
Sure. We have a couple of core changes to the game that are very welcome. They're tweaks, but they're very welcome. The first one is consumable artifacts. They're changing. They're waving into their magic developer wand, and they're changing how consumable artifacts work. And now, instead of taking an action, one of your 2 precious actions to use your consumable item, you just get to use it as a bonus action. So consumables now read, the bearer can use this lesser artifact as a bonus action, which means free. You can just do it. And this saves so many items from being almost useless that you would never use an action to use them, to just really fun artifacts that you now get to play with.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of you, Shadow Orb, specifically, where you can sacrifice an action to gain fly, But fly would almost never be more useful than the extra double movement if you really
Right.
needed it somewhere. Like, so rarely. But now you can just, like, smash that ord and just scoot off into space. With both your move actions. So that's
Yeah.
great. We had talked very early in season 1 how to fix consumable artifacts.
Yeah.
And this is by far the most. It was more. Boy, I'm really struggling. It has greater effect on, like, the power of individual artifacts. Like, all consumables are now way better.
Yeah.
Just straight up. I think we were talking a lot about, like, there's, like, a new ability you can use where you can use a consumable as a bonus action or other things. I forget what other rules we kicked around. But this is great. I'm so happy they did this.
Yeah. No, this is, like you said, game changing. And we did incorporate as a free action in one of our campaign seasons, and it worked well because people used them more because, like you said, it didn't take up a precious action. So really happy to see it's an official ritual change that'll, like you said, add so much more value to some of those lesser artifacts. Yeah. So the next rule set, of course, they added the Grand Alliance rune mark clarification. So they got a table showing all the factions and which Grand Alliances they belong to. So this book was definitely integrated for the Grand Alliance Warcry books, and they all came out at the same time, which makes perfect sense. And then they also had some adjustments to reinforcements and how they work. And this is supposed to replace the paragraph in the core book. Again, this reinforcement section is about spending glory before you pick your warband for a campaign battle. If your warband has less dominated territory than your opponent, or the battle is a convergence battle, and you are the aspirant warband. So you can spend 1 glory or 3 glory points. You spend 1 glory, you get 50 extra points. Spend 3 glory, you get 100 extra points to use in your campaign. So a small tweak on how it works, but I think it lets you use it, gives you more flexibility in how to use it, which is nice.
Yeah, I think the big point here is that you could always do it if you were the underdog. You could spend some glory to catch up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But now the way it reads is that even if you're the favorite by points in dominated territories, you can still spend that glory if it's your convergence battle.
Right, which is awesome.
Well, yeah, which is great, especially for folks that are really struggling on their convergence. It's nice to spend that glory to get just every little bit of advantage you can. And I'm always rooting for people on their convergences, even if I smash them in to prevent them from getting them.
Right. Can't make it too easy.
So yeah, I think that's great. That these are all these rules feel good.
Yeah, and I think definitely enhance the game in a lot of good ways. It's nice to see that they're willing to. I mean, the glory point adjustment was the first kind of insight we got to rule changes per se. So this was nice to see that they're, as an annual book, they're planning to see how things work and tweak things so that everybody's still having a good time with the game. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think our next section is this book. Obviously the core book has a section called Triumph and Treachery for multiplayer games. And they have a lot of interesting games, and we talked about them in one of our episodes during the first season. And this book introduces another type of Triumph and Treachery called pit fighting. Paven, did you want to describe what your thoughts are on that?
I wanted you to describe it.
Okay, I'll describe it.
Yeah.
So the pit fighting is actually really cool. So it's different than the White Dwarf rule set we talked about for September 2019 and some of the campaign games in here, where this can have up to 3 to 6 warbands all on the table. And the unique aspect is you have 1 to 3 fighters per warband and no greater than 250 points total. You can have one of those have a leader rune mark, but they don't have to. And essentially, it's just your 1 to 3 models showing up with all these other models, and you're going at it. There's no allies, no thralls, no monsters. There's usually 6 deployment zones for all of your members of the warband to come on. There are 3 different terrain cards that you do, so you just kind of roll, and then whoever wins the initiative chooses one of those. There are 3 different types of victories. No twists, but that's because there's a random events table, which has got some really unique stuff on there, including like the arena master letting monsters run onto the field and affect the fights, which is this is great. The unique thing about this pit fighting Triumph and Treachery rule set is they introduce this special reactions. And they work by keeping your singles. So having the most singles not only wins you an initiative, but you hold on to them, you set them aside, and you can use one of those dice to use a special reaction. And these reactions include riposting or parrying or attack grappling. And so you just use one of those dice, and then you roll on a 4-up, you usually get an effect. But it adds a lot of really unique interactive combats where you can now grapple an opponent or block an attack and then stick them with your sword. So I imagine a lot of people are going to have fun with this, especially in days where, they even recommend, like on days where you might be having a campaign, but there are too many people and everybody can't get games in. This is a great way to have 6 people throw down, have a good time. And they even have a section that talks about, okay, if you're including this pit fight as one of your campaigns, you can use it as an event, and it just talks about how you can distribute glory to those members in those war bands, and you can get glory for using triples and quads and things like that. So a lot of really fun, interesting reactions there. I think people are going to have a great dynamic time trying these out. And I definitely see us using it as like an event day during our, next campaign leagues, and looking forward to trying them out.
I don't know. These multiplayer rules look a lot more exciting to me than the ones in other books.
Right.
Because multiplayer games can take longer. You can be really waiting around for your turn. You can be so far away from your opponent, it's just like you never get there. But this has like a lot of things in it to speed things up. Like there's less fighters. Like I think I'm really excited, and I think it's better, more cleanly integrated into a campaign. So I don't know if you're writing down like things I really want to do when we're like running Warcry League again, or when you're running Warcry League. I never ran it; I just participated. But this is definitely one of the things that should be on that list.
Yeah, no, definitely on the list. Especially when I get that arena finished printing and pinned it up, that'll be a great way to incorporate it. They also had some dungeon layouts, so you can use some of the catacomb board, for integrating that. And I think a lot of good options, especially adding monsters to mess things up, and it'll be a lot of fun to try out. I can't wait.
And I think it's also like so new player friendly. Just you need like 2 models, or 1 model maybe. Like 250 points is nothing. It's like just your leader.
It could be.
And then you just like move that guy and you punch him up, and I think you have a good time. And if somebody comes in the store and wants to play, give them a model. Yeah. And then they just join the next round, which will start in 15 minutes. So
yeah, I can see this is definitely, like you said, a great way to introduce new players and try out some unique fighting. And you only have 1 painted model? No problem. We got a game for you. It's great.
Yeah, here it comes.
Awesome. All right. Well, you want to describe for us what some of the new narrative battles are since we're skipping the Soroth Core campaign.
Oh, Soroth Core campaign is pages and pages of dope campaign rules.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm going. Okay, so narrative battles, new section. These are how should we conceptualize these? I would say that these are like the Warcry version of Age of Sigmar scenarios. Mm-hmm. So it comes to you kind of fully formed with all of the rules, the deployment, attacker, defender, kind of all of these things set up ahead of time instead of drawing cards or rolling dice to dynamically generate it. And it's, I think, to create a more cohesive and a little bit more curated experience. I think all these narrative battles can totally be used as both a pickup game or within a campaign. It's just a little bit more prescriptive. So that's it. They come with 6 of them, and I think me and Josh picked out our 2 favorite, and we'd love to tell you about them.
Yeah, so one thing to add to that is all of these, as Paven said, they're kind of scripted. They're set in a certain way, and that's also to incorporate a special battle plan ability. They all have a special battle plan ability that sometimes one of the warbands can use or not, or everybody can, to kind of add a unique flavor to it. So that also changes a little bit from the standard card setup. All right, Paven, you want to describe your narrative battle that picked?
Yes. So this is the Arcane Ritual, which I think is I don't know. I have no evidence of this, but I imagine that the rules writer is I really want to take another shot at the ritual.
Right.
Because we've talked about and praised and insulted the ritual victory condition from the original core game many a time. because it's all just like dice, and it feels like it's very hard to win, and it's kind of a mess. But it's still very fun, very thematic. And so the theme of this battle is that there's like one warband is doing some kind of arcane or religious or some kind of voodoo in a place, and they have all of their totems and their potions and their lotions and everything set up, and the attacker's trying to spoil the ritual. And so this is a more detailed version of it. So there's a lot of differences to the original ritual, which is just like the defender like picks one spot and that's the ritual site, and then the attacker immediately swarms it, and then there's like no way to win. But in this one, so you get to do a lot of things. One is you figure out who is the attacker and who's the defender, and then you draw 3 terrain cards. The defender gets to pick which terrain cards in. They already know the deployment. The defender starts in the middle, and the attacker starts off to one side, and then everybody else like kind of comes in later. Your dagger and shield comes in later. So you have the defender has that information. They get to pick the terrain. That's an advantage. Then they get to set up an additional piece of terrain that's not on the terrain card. That's another advantage. Then the defender can set up die 3 pieces of deadly terrain anywhere on the battlefield. So like kind of like fortifying their position. So this is both thematic in that like this is their area that they've set up ahead of time, but also like help them try to win this probably difficult scenario for them. Right. And then they get to deploy there's 3 objective markers. And one is the ritual site, which is like the main spot where things are happening. And then there are 2, what are they called? Arcane
repositories.
Arcane repositories. So these are like additional sites that help feed into the main one. So the defender gets to pick where all of those are. And then you score points as thus. If the defender has the ritual site, they get die 6. And if they have the ritual site, and then if you have the ritual site, you can also get an extra die 3 if you have the arcane repositories. So if you have the ritual in the middle, you can use the arcane repositories to pump it up. For the attacker, no matter which one they have, for each one they have the so it's not, I guess they don't score points. There's just like a ritual point counter. So the defender wants to add to it, the attacker wants to subtract to it. So if they own an objective, they get to subtract die 3. So we're still rolling the dice, but there's more mitigating, more strategy. One more thing. So the battle ends after if the number of victory points is ever 18. So the number of ritual points, or I guess these are the defender's victory points, is ever 18 at the end of the battle round, the defender wins. Or after the 4th battle round, if they haven't achieved 18 yet, the attacker wins.
Gotcha.
The special battle plan ability is Trash the Repository. And for a double, you can use this ability if you already own the objective, which means you've owned it from last round, and you have a fighter within 1 inch, they can remove the Arcane Repository from the battlefield. So I guess what a defender can do is they can like cap it in the first turn, but when they feel like, the bad guys are coming and they're going to retake the artifact, they like knock all the bottles off the table and like smush up the circle and like, disperse the salt or whatever they do so that the attacker can't use the ritual site against them.
Right.
So
Nice.
I think it's really cool. I think it's really thematic. I love the ritual. I love the narrative behind it and the cinematics. I wonder if this will give us a better gameplay. I hope it does.
Yeah, and I think having 3 points that can be contested, I think would make it a lot more dynamic. So the one I chose was called Storm the Encampment. Again, like you described, it's interesting. You roll off for attacker defender. The defender gets to place terrain and deadly terrain to make it defensible, which makes sense because it's their encampment. And your leader essentially decided you've had enough and you're going to rush the enemy and take care of them once and for all. So the defender gets to set up their position and has to put down some treasure pieces. And this is similar to a different scenario where the defender can't pick up the treasure and just has to protect it. The attacker has to try and get the treasure and get it out someplace safe. And in this particular scenario, the attacker picks 1 twist from 3 cards, so you can the attacker gets to plan their attack essentially a little bit. Where in like the scenario you discussed, the defender gets the advantage of the twist card. But I think the one thing that really was interesting about this scenario and drew me to it is that this unique battle plan ability is only for the attacker. But if you have a model within 1 inch of a terrain piece, you can use an ability and set fire to the terrain piece, and it becomes dangerous terrain, deadly terrain for the rest of the game. It's just a great image for this attackers rushing onto the board. Oh, we're going to burn down your encampment. So I was like, oh, this is awesome. You can set flames to buildings and, people be running around, all sorts of fun stuff. So definitely a cinematic battle plan in my mind. It's great.
I like it. I like it a lot. I like it especially because it's kind of set up so the defender will set up like a fortification in the middle with all the treasure, and the attackers like kind of swarming it.
Yeah, I agree. And there was one other, maybe I'm thinking of this as a challenge battle. Yeah, it's a challenge battle later that was just super awesome. I didn't pick it, but we'll have to just mention it later. But,
yeah, it can be a it's special.
Swarm of Champions one, yeah. All right, so now we'll touch on there's one addition to the Trial of Champion rules that Paven alluded to.
Mm-hmm.
All the rules are the same, except they added a unique factor where if you roll a double while you're rolling on the lesser artifact table, you now get a champion reward. So, except for double ones, which is dead, so that's you're slain. You don't find anything.
Yeah, exactly. You get extra.
Right. But the champion rewards are instant, and there are a lot of interesting things. Like they moved the life stone here, which is something that one fight in your warband removes permanent and temporary injuries. They've added a wandering sawbones to heal as well, gold ingots which give you d6 glory points, and a map fragment and an astral compass. So just another little reward for rolling a double during your lesser artifact tables. And I thought it was a nice touch and fun stuff because it's instant and it can help your guys survive and recover a little bit more from the injury tables, which is always nice.
Yeah. And they get these instant rewards on top of the lesser artifact they get on the table.
Right. Yeah,
these
good
just more stuff for you to get, which I think is great. I think it's more fun. It's more tables. I'm always a fan of more tables. Until it's we hit too much, and then I'll let everybody know. I'm like, all right. But I think we're good. Still, and it isn't an easy one. If you roll a double when you're searching for lesser artifacts, you just get this instant, but it's not necessarily this instant reward, which is more glory or something else.
Yeah.
But it's not something necessarily you have to write down in your campaign sheet.
Yeah, I agree. All right, and so the next section we'd like to talk about are the Fated quests. The Trial of Champions in 2019 had a lot of new Fated quests. This is no different. The main difference here is that they're themed for places in Soroth Core, but they can be played independently of that, of course. As you mentioned in our notes here, Pavement, that some of them take place on those additional Catacombs boards, the expansion pack, which is fun. That's a great way to add some of that element. And one of the ones I chose will kind of cover that, but we'll let you choose your example.
Wait, Josh, I have a question for you first.
Yeah.
Has every Warcry publication since the core book had Fated quests in it?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. So something to expect. Yeah, we always get new Fated quests. Everybody can use them. They're great additional gameplay and expansion to the lore. Here are our two favorites. Here's my favorite. It's called The Cost of Avarice. And so this takes place in the dead city of Soloth Core, as does everything else in this book. But here you've found your way. Your Warband has found its way to the Grand Library of Soloth Core. And in that library, you're just ransacking it, looking for things of value to resell in the kind of horrible markets of Karngrad. And you find a book, and it is, it's bad news because it's not called a book; it's called a grimoire. And as soon as it lands in your hands, you are teleported to some maze. But you're outside of the Silent City. Suddenly, you're in this horrible maze. And the book starts talking to you and making fun of you, and now you have to battle your way out of this different hellscape and escape back out into the library. And so this is cool. We got a possessed book. We're being teleported somewhere. Is it the realm of chaos? Is it just the 8 points is close to chaos? Is it some just horrible micro realm? You don't know. Who is this book? How do we kill it? And then so that's the campaign your warband gets to go on, and then your choice at the end of it is whether you are whether you destroy the book to escape or you keep the book for yourself as a prize, as you have bound it to your will, at least for now. So I think that I like all of the narrative of it. I also like, as Josh mentioned, this is one of the fated quests that takes place on the additional Catacombs board pack. This one takes place in the Lair of the Sphere board. Now, I don't know if that means this campaign has transported you to the Lair of the Sphere. I don't know if that's not necessarily has to be true. Right. But I do like a good dungeon campaign. So this one's that's why I like it. I think it's fun, and it's really getting you good use out of that board pack, which I don't have. But now that I have all this terrain painted, I think I should pick up, because I imagine it might be a limited opportunity purchase.
Yeah, it's hard to tell at this point, but yeah, the boards are definitely unique, and the change of layouts will be fun, because you start getting used to playing on one board. Your strategies might start to be more solidified. So yeah, definitely good to change it up, especially now we have so many narrative elements to encourage it.
Yes.
Awesome. But yeah, that was a great scenario. I loved the book and the teleportation. I was like, aha, you found me. We're out of here. So it was great. So the fated quest I chose is called the Maudlin House. And it takes place in the House of Sorrows, which is essentially like the largest kind of crypt. You know, it was a large building in Soroth Core where the people prepared the dead and interred them and did their ceremonies. And it's been sealed off. You've been called here, and there's a lot of people who've been called here across the 8 points for some purpose. You play on the Lost Valorum dungeon board, so it's got a very spooky feel for it. And you're making your way through here. You have to bust on the doors because they've been sealed to prevent lost spirits from coming out. And you're making your way down deeper and deeper in here. And you find out that you finally encounter a bunch of spirits, and they're upset because you're not just following their whim, but they're celebrating the Feast of Souls. So they've been calling people across the 8 points to devour their souls. This is fun because it's celebrated with Lunagas waxes in Shaiish. And apparently this has been going on since the city was first established. So again, another mention of Lunagast, and somehow they're keeping track of where it is in Shaiish. So I thought that was interesting. So you get to this point and you've discovered that, they're having this Feast of Souls. Since you're still sane, they say, well, you could join them or you could banish them. And so that's the honor or glory. And you get some pretty cool artifacts out of this. You can, either get, if you decide to banish them, which is the honor, you get to rampage for free once per battle. That's that's the exalted command trait you get. It's amazing because you have this immense willpower. And if you go for glory and decide to join them, you get this potent dagger, which gives you +1 damage to your hits or critical hits for each enemy you've killed in that battle. So if you kill one enemy, you get +1. You kill 2 enemies, you've gotten +2, and it kind of continues to go up for the course of the battle. So yeah, really interesting. They've added a lot of interesting artifacts throughout this book. Like one of them, I think, lets you use Inspiring Presence to triple for free once per game. So lots of interesting additions. It's nice to see the variety that they keep coming up with for the exalted command traits in the artifacts, for sure. But yeah, there are a lot of really interesting fated quests. The challenge battles, like you said, are so much more fun. Co-op now with the special rules for wild fighters, and we'll definitely have to jump into that next. And since you've kind of tried this out, would you mind describing how wild fighters work in a little bit more detail?
I would love to. Give me a moment while I flip to the right page.
Yeah, I'm doing the same. So I can back you up.
Okay, so this set of challenge battles, we've gotten challenge battles before. I think the last time we got them was in Tome of Champions 2019. Although, no, we had challenge battles with all of the Grand Alliance books. Yep. Usually they're themed around something. For this set of challenges... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say also with Monsters and Allies. So, yeah, and all the books so far. Yeah.
All the books also have challenge battles. Okay, great. So for this set of challenge battles, there's often a prerequisite and a stake. So for challenge battles, so that is like in a campaign game, to do a challenge battle is how many territories do you need to have? Like how much renown does your warband have? They have to be somewhat established in order to take on these challenges. And then if you lose a challenge battle, how much do you lose? So, like for example, you could have a requirement of three dominated territories, and then a stake of 1. So if you lose the challenge battle, you lose 1, and then you can at the end of the challenge battle, usually there's some reward. It could be you now have a monster on your team. It could be you get a bunch of lesser artifacts. It could be you get a specialized artifact. So that's for all challenge battles. For these specific challenge battles, what is thematic across them is wild fighters, and that these wild fighters are controlled by either the players based on the behavior on a dice roll, or by kind of a third kind of DM player. And these wild fighters behave in a bunch of unique ways. So one is they are in battle groups. So instead of being a Daryl, Hammer, and Shield, they're in these battle groups. In these battle groups, usually the challenge battle scenario will tell you how many battle groups and how many points they should each be. And then when it's time for the wild fighters' turn, battle group is activated. And the players can choose which battle group, or in my game, I just roll the dice to choose which one would activate next. And then when that battle group activates, you activate each fighter in that battle group in turn. And then each fighter behaves differently depend on the table setup, or like their relationship to the rest of the table. Specifically, how close are they to a fighter? So if they're there's 3 kind of groups of behaviors the fighter can be, and that's in combat range, in threat range, and beyond threat range. In combat range means they have like a weapon that can hit an enemy fighter. So that's pretty simple. Do you have a bow? Can you hit somebody with it without moving? Great. If you have an axe and you're right next to somebody, great. That means you're in combat. In threat means you can move and then hit somebody with a weapon. So it's like, are you within a move? Then you can attack. That's in threat range. And then beyond threat range is you're not. You can't move and then attack somebody. And then, so you roll a die 6, and then on the table you get a behavior. So for in combat, you're almost always attacking. Sometimes you double attack. Sometimes you recuperate an attack, which means you heal. I believe you heal by heal 5 damage points, and then you attack. And then there's also, if you roll higher, you kind of behave a little bit more aggressively. These wild fighters. So Berserk, for example, means you get +1 attack. So if you roll 5 when you're in combat, for example, you do Berserk, which is +1 attack, and then you attack. Kind of like Onslaught. And then there's, another one. In threat range, you're often moving into threat range and attacking, but sometimes you just like heal and then move. Sometimes you get +1 strength, sometimes you get +1 attack, sometimes you do impact damage. And then beyond threat range is often you will either recuperate or kind of you slowly start to move towards the nearest enemy you can see. Often this is a double move. Sometimes you can double move and then do impact damage. So you're not doing an attack, but you're doing die 3 damage to you hit.
Nice way to add abilities for the AI, essentially, because they don't have ability dice per se.
Yeah, and so you don't have to worry about ability dice. Usually everything the AI is doing is just kind of moving forward and attacking whatever they're closest to, which is like a simple way to play it. You don't have to spend a ton of time with really complex behaviors. Often they don't like play to the scenario. Well, they almost never play the scenario. They're just trying to take your fighters off the battlefield, which I think is fine. And I think it was a smooth way of playing. It was quick. I didn't have to look too many things up, and they can be really deadly because they may not be doing things the most tactical way, but they're almost always like trying to take your pieces off the battlefield. And they're just rolling lots of dice. They're getting +1 attack. They're getting +1 strength. They're like double moving on top of your guys. And if you're already like in it, activating all their guys at once is an advantage. If you're far away, activating their guys at once is a disadvantage because they kind of all move up into you and then you can counterattack. But so far, I really like the one game I played. I think it's great rules. It'll be fun to take on the challenges with a buddy, to do some co-op. And if you wanted to make it harder and more challenging, I would just add more points to the wild fighters.
Yeah, to their battle groups, essentially. Yeah, I think that's one of the really interesting things about this set of challenge battles is most of the time your adversary is playing the opposing force. This time you're allied to somebody against an AI-controlled force, or like you said, maybe a third-player DM sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of fun. It's a difference that I thought was really a nice way to change up the game phase. It was like, oh, wait, now we're on the same side all of a sudden for some reason. Pretty cool. Thank you for describing that, David. Do you want to go ahead and share with us the one you thought was fun?
I am happy to. So I won't talk about the Fall of Snaggerot, even though I thought that one was very fun. I'll pick out my other favorite, which is Envoy of the Demon King. For this one, you and a buddy are... Okay, I'll read it. I'll read some of it. You fought your way to the heart of silence at the center of Soroth Core, and many crooked temples lie abandoned here. And I don't know how much more of this to read. Perhaps inside one, answers to some of the city's many secrets can be found as you and your ally arrive, however. A sonorous and unsettling sound carries through the air. Chanting, it appears that a coven of... what are the acolytes? Kyric?
Carrick, yeah.
Carric acolytes have been assembled to work some great ceremony of sacrifice illuminated by strange witch-fire torches. So so you come across like a Tzeentchian warband doing some ritual. You and your ally fight them, and then as soon as all of the, and I think this is the hardest one in here, which is maybe why I liked it. So you need 6 dominated territories. You and your ally can each take 1,300, and then you're gonna play against 3 wildfighter battle groups, each of at least 260 points of disciples of Tzeentch Arcanites. And then you have to wipe them all out. And then once you've killed all the Arcanites, a Lord of Change appears in its own battle group. And this is an exalted battle group, which instead of having 1 activation, it gets 3 activations. And it's got a bonkers profile, 120 wounds, and it's got a range 9 magic attack, 3 attacks, strength 9, 6 and 9 damage. And then on top of that, every time it activates, it casts a spell. And so it's a randomly generated spell. On a 1 or 2, it's Mystic's Shield. And it's no damage points can be allocated to the Lords of Change from attack actions as long as until the shield is broken. And so in order to break it, you have to have an attack that targets the Lords of Change that scores any critical hits. And then that attack is still thrown away, but then the shield gets broken. And then there's a Storm of Magic one, which is die 6 damage to every fighter within 9 inches. And then one where it translocates. So it disappears and then appears again far away from fighters. So if you've really ganged up on it, it can disappear and then appear somewhere else and then blast you again with more magic. Which is probably one-shotting most things. And then you have to kill the Lord of Change in 6 rounds, otherwise you lose. And so that would be super. I don't have the Lord of Change, but I would think about painting it up because that seems like a really great, really fun scenario.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. You could probably use any sort of demon type model and then represent, with the stats. But yeah, that's a lot of fun.
It must be exactly as the book.
Must be this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm a very coloring in the lines kind of guy, Josh. Josh, tell me about your challenge battle you picked.
Definitely. So I picked one that was in theme with the Fated quest that I thought was interesting. And this one is called March of the Dead. And the narrative battle that I chose. I'll read the description here. It says, you and your ally are squaring off to battle over an outpost near the House of Sorrows, greatest of Soroth Kor's mausoleums, when a chill wind fills the air. From every crypt and shadowed cranny march the dead, intent on seeing you join their ranks. You must band together to fight and survive until the bloody sun rises once more. Though, should your opposite number fall, it's only natural your claim to the territory would stand strongest. So I thought this was great because you and your opponent all of a sudden are like, oh, yeah, we're allies. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Your whole warband starts on the table in 1/4 of the board, and this is your settlement. And you can set up, however many pieces of terrain you want, kind of making this a defensive area. And you have 6 battle rounds. You get about a little over 1,000 points for each of your warbands. And you have to fight against 5 wildfighter battle groups of at least 400 points or more in each one. It's essentially the Night of the Living Dead sort of scenario where you have to survive 6 turns. And if you have the most models in your quarter of the board at the end of 6 turns, more than the undead models, then you win. If there are more undead models in your quarter of the board at the end of 6 turns, then you lose. And additionally, there's endless hordes. So for every model you kill, it comes on in the reserve phase next turn from one of the deployment zones. So they just keep coming. So I was like, oh, this is a great scenario. How long can you survive? And you got to keep them out of that corner of the board, too, which I think is going to be the hardest part. So, but you do get some neat choices of treasures if you win, a treasure hoard, an artifact of power called a Null Charms. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting that you just have these waves and waves of undead that you have to push out of your zone and just survive 6 turns to make it. So, just a couple of brief mentions. There is the challenge battle in here where you have to fight against, what is it, a Mega Gargant, right? Yeah, that we heard about. It's definitely in there. Really cool. And the other challenge battle I thought was super cool is called Tide of Chaos, where, again, you're fighting against waves of mutants and all sorts of stuff. And it has a table with some unique artifacts of power that you might get. That looked really interesting as well. But a lot of really cool challenge battles in this book. Okay. All right. With that mentioned, we do have some changes in the lesser artifacts, but maybe some. There's quite a bit changing. A lot of the artifacts are similar. But what they've done with the Grand Alliance books that have come out is they've introduced lesser artifact tables for each Grand Alliance. And one of the things they did here is they included a page kind of describing each of the Grand Alliance factions and some of the types of treasures that they would look for or that they have, which kind of explains what's in the lesser artifact tables, which I thought was really nice. I enjoyed the story and narrative description of why certain things are in those particular tables. Did you have any other comments about the tables themselves before we give some examples?
Yeah, only one is that I want to kind of amend what I said earlier, that there weren't any other changes to Tome of Champions 2019. And that is the Trial of Champions. They had a lesser artifact table specifically for Trial of Champions. Mm-hmm. That's been replaced by these 4 separate tables. So there was an update to the lesser artifacts. These are, I think, cooler and more thematic and just more of them. So they're more related to kind of your warband's mythological orientation as it relates to the Grand Alliances.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, but I think we picked 2 favorites each, one from each table. And who starts, Josh? Who do you want to kick us off?
Kick it off with Chaos.
All right, Chaos. I picked Weeping Doom Stars, and I'm going to read their flavor text. These fine-bladed throwing weapons, favored by the clan's Eshin Deathmasters, can slice through armor and deliver their toxic payload into the target's bloodstream with a simple flick. So these are ninja throwing stars used by Ratmen. So very cool. And what you do is they're consumable, so you get that bonus action. You pick an enemy fighter within 9, and on a 3-up, you get to do die 6 damage points to them. So you got to land the star attack, but then you hit him with that poison. So I think throwing stars are cool. I'm glad throwing stars are a consumable artifact.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, the one for order I had to pick because we'd gotten the new Bugman's model, and it's Bugman's 3 6s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 X's. Yeah, 3
X.
Right. So you found a Bugman's XXXXX, and it's also a consumable, as you might expect. It says, brewed by the legendary Bugman family, this cask of ale possesses incredible fortifying properties. And it does indeed. The bearer can use this lesser artifact as a bonus action, because it's a consumable. If they do so, you can remove 2d6 damage points allocated to them. Then, the bearer can make a bonus move action or a bonus attack action. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. You can heal and then go in for another attack or another move. That's some good stuff.
That's very strong. Yeah. A heal and then a bonus attack. That's quite a brew.
You need to roll 63, but yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, all the 60s get their own individual item.
Right. Because they're all a little flavorful. Yeah. Excellent. So what did you have for destruction?
For destruction, you should note that destruction can also drink the Bugmans. They can also have access to fear. So it works the same for them. I want to shout out the Bad Loon Boss Fungus because it's crazy good. For the 66, it's that you get crits on a 5-up, which is feels incredibly strong. But that's not the one I actually want to talk about. I want to talk about the Icon of the Evil Sun. And this leering icon feels many worries of destruction with either with awe or superstitious unease, and it spurs them to battle unveiled. And so what it does is it gives you +2 to your move characteristic unless a twist card with either climate or magical phenomenon are in play. So it's pretty much +2 move on a sunny day for destruction. I think it's like a really cool artifact, and I really like it that it interacts with the environmental twists.
Yeah, you gotta be able to
in a
see
way
the
that
sun,
you don't always
right?
see. So it's like, if the sun's out, your guns are out, and I guess your guns are your +2 move. So yeah, that's one I picked.
That's cool. That's very cool. The one for death that I picked is the Faneway Crystal. It's a relic of distant Shadespire and perhaps other such cursed places besides. These crystals can be drained of power in order to swiftly translocate the bearer. And I thought this was super cool because it's like one of those teleportation items, and we don't have very many of those. But the bearer can use it as a consumable, and if they do, they are removed from the battlefield, and they can be set up anywhere on the battlefield, at least 5 inches away from enemy fighters. So I can see this being a huge winning factor in some particular missions. Where you're like, oh, I'm out of here, and I'm anywhere I want to be on this table.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's awesome. Teleportation one.
Yeah, I like this one. I like to call out the Shadespire. I also really like that it's anywhere in the battlefield more than 5 inches from enemy fighters, because otherwise it's like a super powerful aggressive item, which I don't think is as narrative, but like you just put it on your toughest fighter, they teleport right on top of your opponent and just like go to town.
Right.
Yeah. But just like more sneaky and more kind of as an escape or a tactical move.
Exactly, and especially, since some of the Legion of Nagash are slow, this is a great way to get around, or if you had a quad, you could use this first, teleport somewhere, and then use your bonus move and attack with a rampage, all sorts of good possibilities. It's awesome. Yeah, a lot of really interesting artifacts, and I like that it's all flavored, So with that, we'll just kind of touch on a few things in match play. As you probably know, we haven't played a whole lot of match play games, but the most defining aspect of these is they tend to be more balanced deployment and rule sets. Just so they tended to be used for tournaments and that sort of thing. This particular book adds 6 new pitch battle plans to supplement the core book and Tome of Champions 2019. So between all 3 of them, you get 18 different pitch battle plans for match play games. And in particular, they do call out that in this book, I think it's about half, it's about 5 out of 6 of them have fixed objectives. So going into the game, you know exactly where the objectives are going to be, and they're hoping that it'll encourage you to have a more balanced deployment in terms of your dagger, hammer, shield, and how you play the games. Just like other tournament-based match play games, there are some additional hidden agendas here. These are supposed to replace those in the core book. I haven't gone in detail to just define whether they're changed, improved, or not, but this is one of the few examples where it replaces what's in the core book. And then just a call out for escalation tournaments, where you kind of, over the course of I think 3 or 4 games during the day, you slowly escalate the number of points you have. They added some tables where during the escalation tournament, you can now gain artifacts of power, command traits, and lesser artifacts. So they added a little bit more of a narrative element to this match play system, which I thought was a great idea. I'm really interested to see how people incorporate that. Did you have anything else you wanted to add regarding the match play section?
No, I mean, I think I like the things I'm seeing in here. Yeah, I think it could be fun to, on our list of things that could be fun to run in a day. Maybe a casual match play tournament would be cool just to do for a day.
Yeah, especially if it's the escalating one. I think it'd be kind of interesting. It would be more of a storytelling aspect where your warband is changing over time throughout the day.
Yeah, and if you only do 3 rounds, you can do it in half a day.
Right, exactly. Okay, in the last portion of the book, they just have a couple tables of the roaming beasts, the wild cave creatures and restless undead, which they did have in the 2019. They've just reprinted that here for your reference and use. And they also incorporated the open play terrain setups, the different options, the Architect of Fates, terrain generator, or creating your own terrain deck option. So again, those are just kind of reprinted from Tome of Champions 2019, which to reiterate what Pavan said before, you don't really need 2019. If you get this one, it's got everything in there and more. Again, 2019 does have some additional pitch battle plans, fated quests, and other really cool stuff in it. But in terms of important rule sets, the 2020 will get you covered. Any other thoughts on the book in general before we hop into listener questions?
No,
I know. It's a great book. Highly recommend you get this book. As we talked about in our last episode, if you nothing else, get this book and your Grand Alliance book, and you'll be set, with the core rulebook, and you'll be set for most of what you need. A lot of really good additions in this book.
Yeah.
And
I would say if you're brand new, you don't have to get this book. Like core book and your Grand Alliance book are higher on the priority list. But I would still make sure that you're figuring out a way to use the new glory system and about the new rules in here, like those updates, because there's such quality of life improvements for how the gameplay.
Yeah. Exactly. Incorporate them. And hopefully, when they release the errata or fact, they'll kind of include that in that document too. So you'll have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
Great. All right. Well, we don't have a whole lot of listener questions this time because I was delinquent in requesting questions. So hopefully we'll have more next time. But we do have some interesting ones here that we'll cover. The first couple we have are from PJ Shard, who's a Mortal Realms colleague of ours. And his first question is, how do you feel the narrative battles add to a narrative game? What do you think, Pavan?
Interesting. So, Warcry's a narrative game.
Yes.
And so I think that I don't think they blow open the narrative of Warcry. I think Warcry has a lot of tools they give access to. They give you a lot of evolving and emergent narrative, especially around the randomly generating scenarios and the campaigns and your own warband and kind of the tables you can or roll on or can optionally roll on. So Warcry is already a very narrative game. I think the narrative scenarios, specifically the 6 narrative battles, are cool to play as one-off games against an opponent that are going to be more curated than the traditional Spare, but they're actually kind of maybe some of the least narrative thing in the book and in Warcry in general.
Mm-hmm.
Because the challenge battles have much more stronger themes and visuals that they give you and are more imagination sparking. I think the narrative battles are cool and fun, and I'm excited to try them. But I don't think they're particularly narrative, especially relative to everything else in this book. The Solus Core campaign, which we haven't even talked about, the challenge battles, the fated quests, all these are much more kind of rich in the narrative they tell.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think the unique element is their battle plan specific ability. And so I think that's a nice little narrative twist to those particular battles that we don't have in other settings. Obviously the challenge battles, we have a set of rules that are unique to that challenge battle. So I think that's a nice addition, and it's certainly sparks the imagination for if you're running a unique scenario or a unique event, as we have done. Then you can create little unique rules or abilities to be used for that particular scenario. So again, I think it kind of enables people to think about that a little bit more. And go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I would just say the way I'm thinking about the narrative battles is when instead of playing a regular Warcry game that nobody's on their convergence, we just want to get a game. Instead of drawing cards out of the deck, roll on the table. Let's play one of these.
Yeah.
Because they're still is easy to play. You just put out all your terrain, and it tells you kind of how to generate the scenario and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a different way of play, another cool way of play. I think it's probably a little bit more tight than drawing cards out of the deck.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe I'm repeating myself now, but yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, definitely. Paul's other question, of course, is how does the change to consumables affect the game? I know we've talked a little bit about it, but do you have any additional thoughts that you'd like to share?
Yeah, you're skeptical. Yeah, you have there's a longer question written down here, which I think is not interpreting the rules correctly. I don't know if it's worth getting into that. But I think changing consumables is just a really nice quality of life thing. It took a bunch of artifacts that were sometimes worthless and making them fun and cool to use. And I think they mentioned in the book, they're trying to make the power differential between perishable items, which are always on artifacts, and the consumables more even.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't have to take the full turn to like drink your potion. You can just swig it as the bonus action and then just keep on your day.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, it feels so right. So I'm really glad. I don't think it's like blows the game wide open, but like, you know, there was getting to the point where there were some artifacts I wouldn't even write on my sheet because I was like, I'm never going to use this.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
like that's a feel bad moment in a campaign when you're rolling on your artifacts table and then you look up what it does and you're like, this is nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, I think it just makes the game more enjoyable, and every treasure is useful, which is perfect. That's the way it should be.
And sorry, just to tackle Paul's question a little bit, the bonus action you get from using the artifact is just so you get the effect of the artifact. It doesn't give you like an extra move or an extra attack. This bonus action is kind of like outside of everything.
Yep.
All it means is that you get it for free, and it doesn't really change how anything else works.
Right. I mean, you could take 2 actions and then use it, or use it then an action or whatever else. But yeah, you don't really get a third action per se. Yeah. So if you waited twice, your turn would be theoretically done.
Yeah. Waiting gets you nothing in this scenario.
Yeah, right. All right. And 2 questions from Severe Elon. The first question, is there anything rules-wise that's in here that's also new in the Grand Alliance books? And I think the main thing is the update to rune marks, you know, what rune marks belong in what Grand Alliance, what factions. And otherwise, there's integrations, like obviously the lesser artifact tables are all Alliance-specific, so they're definitely intended to be integrated and used together. Other than that, I can't think of anything else. What do you think, Paven?
Yeah, I mean, they feel like they're part of the same release. There isn't anything like conflicting between them. I think they complement each other well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think again, intended to be integrated, but otherwise there's nothing specifically different. The second question, how does it mesh with coming out at the same time as those? Is the expectation to have both, or are you sitting anything out? So I guess we kind of answered that too. So, I would definitely recommend having both. You probably want the Grand Alliance books anyway for the additional options that you get and the new abilities, you know, for your particular models in each faction subset. And then this again integrates perfectly with that.
Yeah, I think to update my buying guide, which I might have mentioned before, is like the order in which you should get books is the core rule book, and then the Grand Alliance book for the faction you want to play. And that's kind of, I would say, the minimum. You can probably get away with just having the cards for some warbands if you really want to get to a minimum. But I really think that Grand Alliance book is really great. And then I would pick up this book because it's got so many good things in it. But I would, even if you don't pick it up, which I think is okay, then you want to get, I don't know if they published the rules updates, which is really like 3 boxes. It's like not even a full page of rules updates. But those rules updates will just make your games better. So I would make sure to play with those because those, and then everything else is just like, you know, gravy on top. And I think, definitely, like I recommend all these books, but that's my kind of buying order currently. Yeah. Maybe we should create a new PDF document, which is like our buying order for our recommended buying order.
Yeah, a little purchase chart. Yeah. Not a bad idea. Great. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. We hope that you found some of this information useful. There's lots of exciting content that we're eager to try out. And we're even more excited to talk a bit more about the Soreth Core campaign in our next episode. So, do you have anything else you wanted to say, Paven?
I don't. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Let's put a muzzle on this bad boy.
All right. Excellent. And hopefully on Wednesday, Pavan will get out his narrative sheet and his individual battle. I'll help.
Really overhyping my Google Doc with like 5.
It is pretty cool, and I thought it was a great way to share a battle, a solo battle. I haven't seen much of that put together yet, so it was really cool. All right. And please, if you have time, join us on themortalrealms.com/Discord and participate in our discussions in Warcry. We'll talk to you next time.
It's time to put a muzzle on this episode. If it was a good dog, support the show with a positive review on iTunes, sharing it with friends, joining us for hobby discussions at themortalrealms.com/Discord, or leave a tip at themortalrealms.com/Patreon. More content is available at themortalrealms.com and on Twitter at Dogs of Warcry.
Welcome to the Midwest side, those ruthless narratively driven podcast. You'll have a fun ride. I'll be in fall. We get your boss, dice, rolling, roll, in the swamp, never stolen, roll to the Dogs of Warcry.